Hi, I might just maybe found something that seemed crazy, but seemed actually logical. And what if I tell you that most of our decisions nowadays seem a bit different? Why we still need, why people want still better and better weapon is simple. They want power. They just want power. But what they don't know is that this element is actually an invisible drug, more powerful than any other drug ever. And then maybe be the one that actually found out. You might seem that I'm crazy. I know. But if we look back in the days, every single days before 2 days, we might actually notice that something seemed perfectly logical with my theory. You see, when you when COVID-19 existed, right? People seem to have stopped to worry about some stuff that happened before with Iran and stuff like that. You know, because maybe that virus tried to prevent us to just kill everything because we was too thirsty of power. That's maybe why. And why I have such argument now, you'll say. Well, it's really simple. If we look back, example, in the 90s, in the first 90s, like 90s to 90s of 10, many viruses that we saw today, or many other sickness, didn't exist before because we wasn't so thirsty of such power. And since then, there was many tracks that seemed that we wanted more and more and more power. And for some reason, viruses seem to be more and more and more frequent. It seemed not a lot, but if we go back like 10,000 years before Jesus even existed, well, whatever stuff, before the stuff, you know, about the separate of the negative and the positive years in one of the religion. Well, actually, if we take a look, there wasn't a lot of virus back then. There was very few. We didn't talk about a shit ton of viruses back then. Viruses, bacteria, and stuff that could cause sickness sounds not as relevant. They seem to do like nothing. I might actually have found everything because over the time, more and more thing happen. Like people start to fight more often. Back then, in the story of what made 2 days, actually what happened is that at some time or before that time, people might wanted more power, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I said, yeah, we have power, but what we should do? And of course, they often want to show it to others. I actually wanted to defeat the others. It seemed pretty crazy, but often after or before that happened, often a random sickness seemed to kick in. And sounds like that actually at some point when the one of the very worst pandemic that happened way back in 1340 or something, you know, it destroyed a lot, often in Europe. Back in those days, Europe often fight a lot more, and that's why it strikes so hard on Europe and not a lot on some other continent. Because of course, they didn't want so much power. They just want some small cities and stuff like that, just doing their normal life. You see that it started to make sense actually. Everything seemed to look up logical here. Like before, we only like talk about right about often the plague, but for some reason, more and more virus seem to happen after the 18s or 19s, start of 19s, like the Spanish flu. Normally, flus are like seasonals and stuff like that. They do some stuff, but not a lot. This time it was crazy. It did many issues around the planet. Sometimes it's not, sometimes always the virus that does bad things. So, any, if it really just want that, really want just the power and nothing else, and just power, power, and power. Sometimes it's the others that actually clash it because he knows that he just wants absolute power, being the one only supreme person there. Like example, like if we take back in the 90s 39, you know, well actually 90s 33, well there was like, well, now that I cannot say that name, but you might understand what I'm talking of. But yeah, it's pretty wild. But it sounds actually logical. Like that that bad version of that country actually just lasted 12 years, while some others empires back in the antiques days, those time Middle Age and stuff like that. Sometimes some empires last like hundreds of years, like nothing happened, because there wasn't so thirsty of power compared to that country that those years. They only lasted 12 years. It might explain everything. Like HUV, we didn't talk about it. It didn't exist before until 70s or something like that actually exists. That's when that virus seemed to kick in, and seem to be everywhere today. Maybe everything makes sense now. The virus might not be there just for doing bad stuff on everyone, but actually trying to stop just to use that drug that is the power. For some reason, I first seem to drop a bit, sometimes going up again, but at some point, before the virus exists, my power seemed to, my thirst of power seemed to have downed a lot before the virus existed of COVID 19. Yeah, I know I shouldn't say that, but still. But it might make entirely sense. It's like, sounds like logical. Virus that seem to have more infected than ever, then sometimes that others virus seem to have even more than others virus. Like the flu did have a lot of infection. The plague also, but maybe we didn't take by the percentage yet. If we take about the percentage of the population existed and the population affected by the virus or the bacteria or whatever, sometimes the numbers seem to go higher percentage in some time and lower in others. Like actually they're like maybe what? Almost like 10% that actually got the COVID 19 virus. So some pretty large number here compared to some others that seem to have way less. Like some others virus didn't impact as powerful as that. Sometimes it was only one country that was actually targeted, but sometimes multiple. But the virus sometimes don't actually specifically target the right country to target. Sometimes you just sometimes misplace some and actually target sometimes another one that might have done nothing or not. Couldn't explain everything. Why COVID 19 re seemed to reborn every time? Because he knows that we might actually just try to redo the same stuff that we did back in 2019. So it keep me coming back every single time to try to stop everything. Say, hey, yo, I didn't finish, and I'm trying to tell you the thing. But if you try to break it like entirely, and it seems there's just no way to actually have some to come back, or just way too well controlled, then those parts could actually do whatever they want because they don't seem to have any more issues with that. So it can go whatever it wants and go rogue about what the virus try actually to stop and actually do the reverse and actually want everything destroyed because of a too high thirst of power. They didn't realize that. So far, I'm the only one that actually understand that. Like it all makes sense. Like you try to have something, and that is really bad to have. Like it's probably worse than any other drug that you even found in the first place. I'm not even joking. Today I'm seem way more calm than I was when I was sometime younger. I could tell. Like when I was younger, sometime I just went like angry and everything. I just start to do everything to gain everything for only me and the others. All but no, actually everyone. If someone tried to get too much power, actually everyone got the consequence because actually the virus actually tried to not make us all consequence. You know, not to have to consequence every single others like exists because someone just wielding too much power. Maybe that's why COVID-19 existed in the first place. That virus is just simply another virus that came in and said, well, stop it. Get some help. Remember that meme? Well, it's a meme, but still. It's pretty clear that it just represents what they said. You try to stop everything that is getting too much control of, well, too much of power. They're willing to have all the power just by yourself. Actually harm yourself more. You see the stars. Yeah, I'm going with the stars. Normas is like could potentially do like the same example. More massive they are, more powerful they sometimes be. Like able to burn more type of resources. But that came to a problem. They burned the first one faster, and even if they could burn more material, they still do their entire cycle faster than smaller one that just wanted small amount of resources. So that's why the big stars seem to just get destroyed and sometimes do massive damage, while the small one just get a bit bigger than just stop being big and just being small. That's why that example or sun would just being twice a very big star at some point, like in 5 billion years later, you know? And then will become a single white dwarf because just not having the enough power to actually do crazy boom boom that we call it a supernova that bigger star could do. You see, very large star seem to live less longer and less longer again. Unless they live because they wanted all the power for themselves, mean that when they die, they do massive destruction. While the small one will maybe destroy some, but not a lot, because that was more moderated, so they could live like a long life before they actually dies in their time. You see, some pioneers back in the days seem to have like a very long story in a long period of time. Well, not a lot of stories in this long stuff because they didn't want so much power. While some countries that just seem to happen because someone just wanted all the power for himself, have a lot of story, but very few years for him. It explains everything. You have the power, everyone remember you, but you don't be there for long and cause massive damage after that. It explains everything, literally everything. Like, if you get too much of that drug, you will have very bad symptoms of getting more and wanted to have everything for yourself and then just disappear because you just wanted everything and everyone seemed to said or anything just want you to stop. I mean, explain everything. Why COVID-19 actually struck so bad, and why did the Ebola viruses seem to actually happen to appear out of nowhere? Before 2040 or something, Ebola wasn't even a thing. Today we have like two random small epidemic of them, and they both happen in the same continent. But often, some might not stop, and I wanted even more power. So then a random virus that did have sometimes the chance to rise a bit, have now the chance to actually being massive, and everyone talk about the virus for so long because compared to us, the virus are there to sustain long when they have a lot of powers. To say to stop, to do whatever you want. Stop using the this power stuff. It's bad for you and everyone else. So far, I'm the only one to actually understand everything. Like, every time I did something bad, like sometimes I just do bad things to others people. And you know what? I was penalized more than ever. But sometimes the penalties seem bad. That seem not to have been the real thing. Like some stuff was way less harmful. Like just having a random small accident that seemed not that dangerous. It seemed that nobody seemed in danger. Sometimes I get punished more. Like I did something really bad, like example, hitting someone else with something. That is bad. Of course I will be punished if I do that. Because of course I did something that is harmful to someone else. And I wanted power too. And explain everything. The video seemed to be very long now. 24 minutes of video explaining everything. Seemed pretty good. It's a long video explaining everything that sounds logical. Nothing else. It seemed perfectly logical. I hope people could understand what I'm saying because it seemed logical, like everything seemed to go in a logical way. And also, sometimes the COVID-19 actually did like have symptoms really similar to like having like a bit of both the Parkinson's disease and the flu at the same time. They combined two stuff, and people think that it was just a random flu. So since they didn't actually realize the deal with the virus, so we have the time to did damage a bit everywhere to make everyone understand that you might not even understand that actually everything seemed that you did almost did something really bad that messed up everyone and everything. You see, once I did something bad, everyone get penalized. It's logical. Yep, sometimes life is really, I could say, unfair sometimes, but same time it seems logical. Why should someone just seem to be totally fine to not have ever have anything because they were clearly participating in something? So they get punished too. But sometimes the punishment seem to go on the innocent guy. That sometimes happen. And that is about the same scenario than my scenario about that I did some accident that is not hurting anyone, just smell bad, those accident, but otherwise it doesn't harm anyone like badly. Like they don't feel that I hit them. I didn't hit them and everything. It seemed a very logical stuff. It actually nobody actually understand. Everyone want power, and sometimes when you start to take it, you want more because that is super powerful. Even some very powerful other drugs seem to be actually pretty weak compared to that one. That one is really stronger. You want it more and more and more. But that is just the greedy feeling that it gives you. And one day you someone got caught and have bad dealing then, and you're not the only one being punished for that. Everyone else also get punished for that. You see? Well, mostly you, but the others also. But if you try to still continue to break the rules, everyone gonna pass it out, no matter what. Like example, I could like cheat once, and only being the one will be penalized. But if somewhat I cheat many, then one day probably the cheater and teacher of that group might just give everyone a zero because might expect that everyone is cheating, but yet only one person did it. So it makes sense that actually might just stop wanting that drug. You want you want power. You have the feeling to have power. Actually ignore that. Try to do the opposite. To not have the power. Say no to that power. Or try to limit yourself. Have some power but not absolute. Because being absolute means that you really want to have everything for yourself. And after everything seemed bad because everyone else got hit. But this penitence, it explained every single thing. Why the virus seemed to have way more often of them, and why more disease seemed to came out. HIV that didn't exist before, Ebola that never existed before. Same for the SARS and MERS, those didn't exist before, and yet they happen to exist. You see, at some point in 2002, someone somewhere wanted power, but not a lot, just a little bit more than it's supposed to be, and make a little accident. And then that virus seemed to actually just been there and try to infect some, but nobody did actually notice why it was there. You said, oh, it was just a random virus that existed. Didn't do much. Then the MERS, that is still in the same branch, also existed after some time after the first one. Did again some damage, but nobody noticed again why it was there or for what reason. But then COVID 19 existed, the one that we still have around us. And yet, it's only now that people need to be in isolation in the house and everything. You know, those classic rules to actually remove a pandemic. But as everyone was start to being inside and not caring about the outside anymore, and seemed to say, wait, there's other stuff around that is just one bad on us. So we might protect that from that first. You see, makes sense. People are preoccupied by that virus, but they didn't understand why it was there yet. And sometime between 2020 and start of 2021, pretty much nothing seemed to have happened between those times. Well, except maybe me that seemed to be upset with the online classes already. Yeah, I was pretty upset. Why shouldn't I just been doing my normal stuff, like just take it take it easy and just do what I want? Like just playing random games without any worries. Like, yeah, sometimes my anger seemed to happen at those times. But that was because of online classes or just sometimes I just wanted to see me first or anything. And again, I see that I didn't actually do well. Sometimes you just go like, oh, you did it, you are the absolute bad guy and everything. But no, you should not react like that. Because doing that will make you accused instead of the other. If you don't say anything, you continue to play like nothing happened, then report it slowly and explain everything details by details while staying calm and not wanting any power and just show immediately that it's him or her that actually did everything right after it happened. But after some time, that seemed like now you have the chance that someone else will gonna penalize that other players that seem to have badly played, like did obviously something bad for everyone else gameplay. That maybe penalize everyone else and actually just wanted someone to have everything for him. Yeah, sometimes it's even like two people at the same time. People not understand that yet. Well, they should. It's pretty logical to just not be there and just said, you know what? Let's let's say that you did something bad and everything on the game in English stuff. started to be very hungry, and then the others replied with more aggressivity. You see, it's just really dumb to have all the power for yourself. And better be just like, yeah, better ask the one that is above all of us to do something about it, instead of just asking randoms that are equal. Just telling immediately like that, and then just break up everything. And the game, the place is no fun. People should understand that. Anyway, I should stop the video now because I might explain everything. Sometime I repass my stuff. So I will stop it now. And I hope I might do videos that are better than that.